Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to go over real quickly some suggestions on things you can do to save your work and always be able to access your work. So I'm going to go ahead and present my entire screen and just make some useful suggestions for y'all. And this is just as an aid. Just remember that you all have a file and a folder located on your Google Drive in my class. So I would always work from that folder with saving your work. If you're on a computer you can't really trust, at least I could go to this class, I can go to my shared drives, and I can look at 2A Adobe Visual Design, and I can see everybody's folders in here. So what I would say is, if you're at a situation where you don't know where your work is, I would always double check and save a copy of your work on here. And then I would also create a file on your desktop for this class. Okay, and I would save in that. I would just say control click or command click, type in 2A Adobe AVD if you want, 2A AVD or whatever your class is, and then I would just double click and save all my work in here. Okay, so you know exactly where it is. Okay, now it's easy to have a whole bunch of little folders and then you're clicking and clicking. From here, I always do projects. I always have a subset folder called projects, suggestion, and then I have another one called class activities. Okay, and then so I have projects and class activities. So if I was working on a file in Photoshop and it did not save, or if I was in, there's two things to remember. Type in Photopea, type in Pia or Photoshop, so I know which ones y'all are using. I just want to get a count on who's using what. Okay. So it's looking like a pretty even split. Sometimes if at all possible and you can use Photoshop, believe me, that's the best solution, because you cannot save all the time in Photopea. In fact, if your browser refreshes, then you're going to lose a lot of your work. So I want to talk about that real from the beginning with Photopea. Remember that when we type in Photopea and we're at it right here, and I go to a new project, and this is my file here. Provided I keep on do anything to this file, if at any point like I lose the internet or something happens, I might lose all my changes in here. So I'm going to be going File, Save as a PSD, and I'm going to take that, and I will definitely throw that in the Show and Finder. Let's see if it will let me. And I'm going to take that template and put it in my I'm going to put it in my folder there. Okay, so I know where it's at, so I can save it. But what I'm trying to get to the point of what I'm trying to get y'all to see is that if anything happens to this, say for instance I hit a refresh or something, or I'm working for like 30 minutes in this program, I got to remember to save. And if I don't remember to save, I'm going to lose all my progress and work. Okay, that's just what will tend to happen. Okay, so are there any questions regarding saving work in Photopea? Nobody has any questions at all? Okay. Now, when it comes to saving work in Photoshop, if I go down to Photoshop, I can look at anybody's graphics. Let's go to movie.psd. Now, when I open the file, it's going to try to find fonts, and if it can't find the fonts, I'm just going to say don't resolve, and that's going to leave it as a visual graphic, but I cannot edit it. Does that make sense? So here's the thing. If I go File, Open Recent, it's going to open the most recent file. It's going to try to find it. Unless your computer crashes, Adobe Photoshop is always saving your work and has a file that they back up all their work. So like if your computer crashes and you open it up, it will try to ask you, do you want to open your last project in the class? Okay. So I got to remember here that I'm going to go File, Save As. Again, I'm going to save this in that special location that I created on my desktop to a Adobe AVD. I'm going to put this in my projects folder. I'm going to keep it as a Photoshop file if I'm going to edit it further. If I'm not going to edit it any further and I'm done with it, I'm still going to keep the native file. Okay, I might even type in movie_native original. So I know that if I don't, maybe I forget to look for the PSD, but I know that the native original is going to be a Photoshop file. That's just a tip. Okay. So now if I'm like here, I like, okay, this is a poster. It's saved to the right size. But now what if I need to take this poster and make it for the web? Okay, how do I make this web size? Well, down in the bottom right of our computer program, you'll see the size of the file. This one says this document is 15.9 megabytes. So I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to go to image size, and I'm going to start pressing the down arrow. And you're going to see that that number goes from 15, keeps on going down. Okay, and what I'm getting it, so I could do that a while, and that number would keep on going down, and it would almost get to a point where it would be something I could put on the web. If I'm ever trying to create a web, something that's going to look good on the web, all I got to remember is the long edge. The long edge needs to be 2048. Okay. Now, what I mean that is that if I go over here, I go image size. I know that the long edge of this photo, this graphic is what? Does anybody know the long edge? What's the longest edge? Is it the vertical or the horizontal?
Vertical?
Very good. It is the vertical. So if I'm looking at the long edge of this photograph right here, and my computer's running low, I'll dim the screen just a bit. If I'm looking at the long edge of this, it's the vertical, right? It's the height. So I'm going to change that to 2048. 2048. Okay, I'm going to say okay. I say, it says the fonts are missing. Say okay to all. Okay, now that file went from 15 megabytes to 8. And it's still the reason it's still big is it's a Photoshop file. But if I go File, Save As, and I go to make sure, hey, I'm saving this project. I want to make sure it's in my projects folder. Okay. I know that this is my native file here. I'm going to go change this to JPEG. Does anybody know what JPEG stands for? It stands for Joint Photographers Expert Group. When the internet came out, that's what this was, a Joint Photographers Expert Group. But long story short, when I save it as a JPEG here, oh, one thing I forgot to tell y'all. When I go to File, Save As, and I'm saving this as a JPEG, I'm going to change it. And I'm going to say movie. This is no longer the original, right? This is my movie poster _ web because it's sized to the web. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go to save. And when it goes here, it says, hey, this is the JPEG slider. Now, this is something important to look at because what it's going to do is if I take this little slider and pull it down right here, it's going to eventually, if it populates, it will tell you the size of the file. I don't know why it's not doing that right here. It usually does. Let's do, let's see, if preview. There it goes. It's because I didn't have the little previews checked. Now look, at full HD res, when I say res, by the way, I mean resolution, it's going to be 1.3 megabytes at JPEG. So that's perfect. That's good. I'm going to keep that high. Don't just click this instantly in graphic design. If you click this instantly, sometimes it might be set right here, and you might even only get, and you might do all that work before, and now you finally click save, and you're going to be, not in a good spot. So make sure that slider's always to the far right. Okay, so I say okay. Now I know where my JPEG is. I know my JPEGs along with my movie poster. So I got my movie. And truthfully, I have this all in the projects folder, but this is our first project. So I'm going to make a first 1ST project or something that I will know this by, movie poster. So I got my native. Now, the best part of this is, Mr. Bush has saved a JPEG, but he's still got the PSD file up. Well, if I don't click save on any of these edits, it will still save the original one I want. And I want it to do that. I don't want it to save and be this lower res image on my working file. So I'm going to close this one out. Or I'm going to get file revert. I'm going to hit file revert because I want it to go back to the original size. Okay, and now if I need to make any changes, I can. I got the web size available. If I need to make some more changes, I can. If I want to make, if I'm going to be creating a graphic design just for the web, maybe I don't. Maybe I edit undo revert, and I say, well, this is always going to be used for the web. So that's just, maybe I just save this file as native original, and then I put underscore used for web PSD. So I know that whatever I'm creating on this file, I can say okay. Maybe on the other one I say underscore used for printing. So I have a print file and a web file. Are there any questions regarding this? No? Okay. I'm going to stop this recording. Are you sure there's no questions? Okay, I'm going to stop that recording.